He looked too small, too quiet, too ordinary for football's biggest stages. But somewhere between rejection, grief, and relentless running, N'Golo Kanté became the player every team always dreamed of.
Hello everyone, it's N'Golo Kanté.
For years, N'Golo Kanté looked like the kind of player people admire but do not build legends around. He was small, shy, soft-spoken, almost uncomfortable with attention. Even later when teammates and coaches described him as essential,
N'Golo is incredible. He's like 1.5 or 2 players. I mean, everybody who sees him for the first time loves him, and all my family love him when they watch our games now. So it's so nice to have him. He wins so many balls. He gives everybody confidence.
He still carried himself like a man trying not to take up too much space. That was the first illusion of his story, because the smaller he looked, the bigger his impact felt. Raphael Varane described him as both a special player and a special person. Didier Deschamps said his importance had nothing to do with his size, and Kante himself once admitted, almost apologetically, "I don't know how to talk about myself." He did not sell spectacle. He sold trust, and in a sport built on ego, that made him unforgettable. Long before the medals, Kante was learning a stranger lesson than most young players ever do. Football was not about being seen. It was about being useful. At Serrain, after a school teacher pointed him toward the club, he grew into the kind of boy coaches remembered for the things highlight reels usually ignore. He listened. He understood quickly. He played with older boys, and even when he was one of the best players on his local team, he did not try to dominate every moment just to prove it. One of his youth coaches said he always played for the team, never trying to do too much. Kante would later say his motivation never changed. Do the best he can for the team, always. That mindset came before the fame. In truth, the fame only revealed it, veiled. This is the part most football stories usually skip. Before Leicester, before Chelsea, before the World Cup, there were years when nothing about N'Golo Kanté's path looked special at all. At 12, then 14, then 16, he went on trials with professional academies in France, and every time the verdict came back the same: no. While other boys were entering elite systems, he stayed in district football in Serrain, far from the fast track and far from the spotlight. He knew it too. He could see the gap. The players at those academies looked sharper, more polished, more prepared for the professional world. For a lot of young players, that kind of pattern becomes a message. This dream is not for you. But Kante read it differently. He told himself maybe he was simply not ready yet. Maybe he needed more experience. Maybe one day would be enough. So he did the hardest thing an ambitious player can do when life keeps saying no. He stayed patient. And he kept working anyway. But behind all the success and the fame, there was a much harder story that most people never got to see. This is where everything changed. By the time many future stars are already inside elite academies, Kante was building a second life in case football never opened up. When he left home for Boulogne at 19, he was not arriving as a prize prospect. He was joining the second team in France's 6th division, trying to survive one level at a time. And because he understood how fragile the dream was, he kept studying. He was strong at mathematics, followed an accountancy track after his baccalaureate, and treated his education as seriously as his football. Later, he admitted that if the game had not worked out, he probably would have continued and become an accountant. That detail matters because it tells you everything about his mentality. There was no fantasy around his rise, no guarantee, no shortcut. Just a young man balancing school, travel, training, and doubt, hoping that one honest chance might eventually become a career. Then, almost suddenly, the years of waiting started turning into momentum. At Boulogne, Kante had shown enough to be named the best player in France's national division in 2012-13. Caen took the risk on a midfielder many still saw as too small, too unknown, too far from the usual path. He answered by becoming one of their revelations almost immediately. In his first season there, he played 38 league matches, helped the club push for promotion, and spoke with the same modesty he always had. He just wanted to keep playing, gain experience, and improve. Kahn's own staff described him as fundamental, adaptable, and humble. A year later, the Premier League still viewed him as an unknown quantity when Leicester signed him from Caen in 2015. But that is what made his rise feel so powerful. To the outside world, it looked sudden. In reality, it was only sudden because almost nobody had been paying attention to the climb before the explosion. For most clubs, survival is the dream. For Leicester in 2015-16, the season began with that same modest ambition because only months earlier they had been fighting relegation. What followed still feels like football arguing with itself. Claudio Ranieri built a compact 4-4-2, asked the team to defend in banks, break at speed, and trust the chaos Kante could clean up in the middle. Leicester became champions with only 3 defeats, finishing 10 points clear at the top. And right at the center of that impossible story was the player almost nobody had noticed a year earlier. Kante did not score the glamorous goals or collect the loudest headlines, but he gave Leicester oxygen. He covered space as if the pitch shrank for everyone else and expanded for him. Official Premier League analysis credited him with the most tackles and interceptions in the league and put him in the team of the year. This was the moment the football world stopped seeing him as a nice underdog and started recognizing something rarer. A player who could tilt an entire season without ever making it about himself. Are you enjoying this video? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing content on African heroes just like this. Some great players are admired. Kante was something rarer. He was loved. Not because he chased attention, but because he never seemed interested in it at all. Raphael Varane said simply, "Everyone loves N'Golo," describing him as both a great teammate and a great person. Paul Pogba called him humble, kind, professional, and impossible to dislike. And the strange beauty of it was that the man at the center of all that praise still saw football in the simplest way possible. In one French Federation interview, Kante said he had learned to love whatever was useful for the collective. That is the whole story in one sentence. He made selflessness look unforgettable. What made Kante's calm feel so powerful was that it was never the calm of an easy life. He lost his father when he was 11 years old, a grief that arrived early and changed the shape of responsibility around him. Years later, just before the 2018 World Cup, his elder brother Nyama died of a heart attack. Those losses sit quietly in his story, just like he does. There was no public performance of pain, no need to turn sorrow into spectacle. But it gives his career a deeper meaning. The humility people loved in him was not softness without struggle. It was strength that had already been tested. By the time the world saw him smiling in football's brightest moments, that smile had already survived things far heavier than pressure, criticism, or expectation. By the summer of 2018, Kante had already gone from overlooked midfielder to Premier League champion. But the World Cup gave his story a different kind of weight. France beat Croatia 4-2 in the final in Moscow to become world champions again, and even on a night when Kylian Mbappe grabbed the imagination and Paul Pogba produced one of the biggest moments, Kante still represented something essential about that team. Balance, discipline, sacrifice, control. Reuters described France as energetic, disciplined, and clinical, and that fit him perfectly. Even in the final, when he was booked early and replaced in the second half, his tournament had already helped define the team's identity. And maybe that is the most fitting thing about him. He reached the top of world football in the most N'Golo Kanté way possible. Not as the loudest star, but as the player every star needed beside them. By 2021, nobody serious doubted Kante anymore. But that Champions League run felt different. It felt like Europe finally saying out loud what his teammates had known for years. Chelsea beat Manchester City 1-0 in Porto to win the final, and Kante was named player of the match. It was not a one-night reward either. UEFA also gave him Player of the Match in both semi-final legs against Real Madrid, then named him the 2020-21 Champions League Midfielder of the Season after what it called a remarkable campaign. That matters, because this was bigger than a medal. Leicester had made him famous. The World Cup had made him global. But this run made his greatness impossible to reduce to one miracle season or one perfect tournament. He was doing it again, against the richest clubs on the biggest nights, and still making it look strangely natural. There was a moment when it felt like the story might quietly fade. Injuries kept taking pieces out of Kanté's rhythm, and in October 2022, France lost him completely for the World Cup after hamstring surgery. For a player whose game depended so much on movement, timing, and endless repetition, that absence felt cruel. It was not just about missing matches, it was about being removed from the stage he had helped conquer 4 years earlier. But Kante has never been drawn to dramatic endings. He came back for Euro 2024 after 2 years away from France and immediately looked like himself again, winning Player of the Match against Austria and then against the Netherlands. The body had slowed him, the standards had not. Maybe that is why Kanté's story stays with people. It is not just about trophies or medals or impossible title races. It is about a man who spent years being overlooked and never let rejection turn him bitter. A man who became world-class without changing the parts of himself that mattered most. In a sport that often celebrates noise, Kante became unforgettable through quietness, discipline, and grace. He did not chase the spotlight. He earned something better: trust. And that is why the boy nobody fully believed in became the player almost everybody loved. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing content.